Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays. Welcome to the Why I Love Disney podcast. We are here with a special episode. We could not do an episode with Spider-Man just releasing over the weekend. We've all seen it. We all saw it within the first 24 hours because we were so scared of getting spoiled. But warnings to everybody, this episode will contain all the spoilers. We're going to tell you all about the movie. We're going to comment on it, talk about reactions. There's really no way to talk about this movie in any depth without spoiling it. So if you would like to, if you haven't seen it yet, just go ahead and pause this, turn it off, and go see Spider-Man No Way Home as quick as possible. Then come back and listen and also interact with us. Let us know what you think about it too. Because we're going to jump right in. David, JD, how are you guys doing?
Doing great. How are you guys?
Fantastic.
Doing awesome.
Doing good.
You got somebody to introduce
I do.
To us.
This is Soren. He's my son. So David was bringing JD in, and he heard Soren heard we were going to talk about Spider-Man. He's like, I got lots to say. I've got lots to say. So I said, you can hang out with us. It's Christmas, and we're home from school and all those things. So we're going to have a good time here for the next little bit talking about Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, as of noon today, the second highest opening ever for any motion picture, second only to Avengers Endgame, $260 million domestically, $600 million worldwide. Guys, that is a ton of money.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's for sure. The money definitely talks for sure. Everybody saw the Rotten Tomato reviews. They saw how the premiere went. People got excited about it, and now the box office is reflecting that for sure.
It's incredible, really. I mean, there's several things to note. One, you were JD on this. Like the hype on this was huge. I like Spider-Man, I really do. And the single character Marvel movies have always kind of been really good, but never kind of the epic proportions of Endgame, Infinity War. The original Avengers, you kind of see even the Star Wars movies. And I didn't see this coming, right? I know there was a lot of speculation and hype around what Sony might do with cameos and guest appearances, but I surely didn't see. And also the fact that we're still in a pandemic with the numbers spiking across the country. I was in a full theater. Was your theater full as well?
Yes, for sure.
Ours was mostly full.
I think that means movies are officially back. That people want to get out, they want to see these movies, and anything Marvel is still just solid gold. And judging by the reactions, when you couple with the reviews and the kind of the fan response, my Twitter feed was full of wow, this is unbelievable. Thankfully, I didn't see any spoilers on my Twitter feed. Way to go! I think most people understand that this is a movie that. For it to be great, you kind of have to not know about it going in, and you want to experience it. And I think it's been remarkable how everybody's respected that. I know not everybody, there's always somebody out there, but by and large, man, the reviews have been universally, this is incredible. Everything from best Marvel movie ever to best Spider-Man movie ever and everything in between. Have you guys experienced the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, back to what we were saying about just our movie theater experience. I mean, I've seen Black Widow, I've seen Eternals, and I've seen Shang-Chi. And this was the first time since Infinity War and Endgame that you were in a movie theater that when something big happened, people were cheering and people were screaming. And that, as a fan, is just, I mean, as a fan of Marvel, is so cool to see. And it's fun to watch people who maybe aren't the biggest Marvel fans, but they've seen the Spider-Man movies, and even they get excited, and even they're in the movie theaters just being just fanatics with everybody else. It's so fun to watch people get passionate about things, and especially movies. So it was just fun. I mean, I saw it a second time. I saw it again last night. And again, you just have a movie theater full of people who have heard about this new Spider-Man movie, and people have said how great it is. So they want to see if it's great, and then they love it. And it's this chain reaction, and it's really fun. And again, I haven't heard anybody yet who has said it was anticlimactic or not what they expected, which was greatness. And that's just been fun to see that.
So let me ask you.
I was amazed.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, David.
I was amazed at the response that people were reacting before it was like they were pre-reacting, like things would happen, and I was like, did they know that was going to happen? And I saw the very first showing. Does that make any sense? It's like they cheered before I even realized what was happening. And I was anticipating several of the things that happened that were the things they cheered for, but there was a whole crowd that seemed to know it was going to happen before I saw a character or a certain thing. You know,
sure.
They were on the edge of their seat.
Same with me. I had the same experience and reaction, David, and there were a couple moves that were telegraphed, but I always like to kind of ease into it. You know what I mean? You always hate to be that guy. It's like, well, this is about to happen, and this is call your shot before it happens. But there's a lot of that happening in the theater, and I love an energetic theater. A little bit different experience for us. Soren, did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy it? Did you like the theater atmosphere? Did you like it when people cheer and scream and stuff like that?
Well, I couldn't hear, but yeah.
I couldn't hear, but yeah, we were actually, oddly enough, and Marvel this is another little side. There is an element of Marvel fan, and I love the cheering, right? I love the crowd interaction. Yeah. And I'll never forget in Endgame and both Infinity War, the collective kind of, I remember the collective gut kick at the end of Infinity War, and then the collective they're back, in an Endgame, right? Mm-hmm. But there's this new thing happening, and it has to do with heartthrobs and teenage girls, and and I'm telling you guys, I don't know what it is. It happened in the Eternals with the Harry Styles, moment, and it happened with Andrew Garfield, and less so with Tobey Maguire. There was a girl. There were some probably college-age girls sitting right behind us who literally just screamed at the top of their lungs, to the point they almost ruined it for me. It was beyond I'm excited about this. It was more like, hey, let me have some attention. Everybody look at me for a minute, right? And I guess that's a great way for Marvel to make money, but that was probably my only complaint with the whole movie is the squealing girl element.
Yeah, and that again, that's what you're saying exactly. That's just that kind of business aspect. You look at, which, and again, I love Zendaya and I love Tom Holland. I think that's a great relationship if you're going to put it in. I mean, Zendaya does a great job. But when you go back to Harry Styles, it's is Harry Styles the best actor? I don't know, but is Harry Styles going to get the most people at the movie? Well, definitely.
It's a whole new element. You're right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did miss some lines, like the cheering. I did a couple times have to turn and say, "What did he say? What did she say?" Because I missed things because people were so loud.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And again, I love the cheering. I loved it too. But me and my buddies who we saw the first time, we were joking around too. It was you want to cheer and you want to freak out. But then it's okay, everybody be quiet really quick because they're about to say something.
Exactly. No, totally. So did it meet the hype for you, David?
Yes, I thought it was excellent. It was definitely one of my favorite Marvels that I've seen. And I think what I enjoyed the most is it felt like it was made for fans. Like they weren't trying to, we're not going to do the same, we're not going to do what you expect. We're going to go down this different path and we're going to rewrite the narrative. It just felt like what everybody kind of wanted to really happen, the things that have been rumored. So it was just really nice to see people enjoyed it because it was what they wanted.
And maybe even more so than what they thought they'd get.
Right. Yeah, because I think everybody probably got more of Toby and Andrew than they thought they were even going to get. So I thought it was excellent, and I really appreciated them making the movie that people wanted.
Absolutely,
instead of rewriting the characters and some things we've talked about with other franchises where you go, why are you messing with that? It reminded me of the moment in The Mandalorian when Luke finally made an appearance and people just went crazy. Yep. And it was that's what people want. They want that nostalgia. Give it to them. That's what's going to sell.
And you want to be surprised, genuinely surprised.
Right.
Yeah. So did it meet the hype?
And I do think it helped that, it was Spider-Man. People love Spider-Man, and a lot of the other movies, Eternals, Shang-Chi, these are characters that are newer to people. It's not that, they just haven't warmed up to these characters yet. It's hard to love a new character like you might love Spider-Man that you've been watching all your life. So for that, I thought it was great. I mean, I know some of the excitement was just because it was Spider-Man, but I thought they did a great job of really writing the story that people wanted to see. And I always felt like that Andrew Garfield was missing a third movie like that. There's a hole there. Like it never felt like that story was finished. So I'm glad he got to come back.
Did it meet the hype for you, JD? Where you're the biggest Spider-Man fan of us here, probably. So
I mean, it absolutely
Soren's
did.
like, I could give him a run for his money. He just looked at me like, biggest Spider-Man.
I bet Soren's got me. But just as a fan of the Marvel universe, I can't remember the last time I watched a movie so intently. I was on the edge of my seat. And, of course, the elephant in the room is Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire are in this movie. And just for that, I mean, our whole podcast, so everything we're doing is why I love Disney. Well, the reason I love Disney is, like, when has this ever happened that a movie studio tried so hard to hide people being in a movie and then shocked the world and shocked everybody? And there's so much, what is going to happen? And they hid two actors from the movie, and then they put them in the movie. It's like, has that ever happened? Like, honestly,
not that I remember. I mean, there was, that was when that Han Solo was going to be in the movie, and then he was gone.
Didn't William Shatner make an appearance in one of the new Star Treks? Or there was maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was some of the old Star Trek characters. But you're right. J.J. Abrams has done that a few times where you get like one and you get some candy. But this was one thing after another. Like it was another level.
Yeah, and not just the Spider-Man characters, but you've also had all the villains too.
Oh, yeah, and of course you've got cameos here and there, and like of course there's always going to be a surprise cameo. But I mean these are huge roles, and they brought so many people back, and you've got when you look at how they've planned this and brought so many big characters and, again, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, it's like, well, how long did they have this planned?
Right.
Because if Andrew Garfield said no or Tobey Maguire said no, it would totally change, the whole, it would potentially change how the whole Marvel next phase goes, with the whole introducing the multiverse. So that, again, excites me because it makes me think, okay, Marvel is planning something next.
Well, yeah,
I can't even imagine.
Totally. I was more surprised. I mean, we had talked about, on this podcast over and over how, okay, this is exactly what they say if they were trying to cover up that they were actually going to be in the movie. Mm-hmm. So maybe, okay, let's just say for a second we weren't surprised to see them. All right? And we were just like relieved and like, yes, right? I was completely surprised to see Jamie Foxx. I was actually really surprised to see William Dafoe. I thought we might get a reference to the Green Goblin from the previews, right, that we saw, but that he had such a prominent role in it, and he's such a fantastic actor. I mean, all of those villains. And then at the end, Tom Hardy was notably missing the entire time, right? And then there he is at the end in the cuts, And then not only that, I'll tell you, one of my favorite things is to see that Murdoch, Daredevil, is the lawyer. And he comes and reveals himself with a power when he grabs the brick. Like that to me, like nobody, there were fewer people, but the people that knew cheered pretty loud right there when he was on the screen. There were lots of, Soren was explaining to me who people were and what they were from and different things like that too. So, it was pretty remarkable just what they pulled off and the scale and scope of it all and how they brought, and again, it blows my mind. It blew my mind the first Avengers movie. I went into the first Avengers movie expecting to be disappointed because I thought there is no way they can give everybody ample amount of screen time and do their characters justice. And they did.
Right.
And this movie, they did the same thing.
Right.
I thought it far surpassed my expectations. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, and two things with that. Back to when we were talking about William Dafoe, I saw an interview, Hollywood Reporter did an interview on him, and he was talking about his role a little bit, and he literally said if they asked me to just do like a 5-second cameo, I wouldn't have done it. But then they gave me the script, and I saw how good it was, and he was like, okay, like, this is good, like, I'm going to do it. So it was cool to kind of hear his perspective and hear one of the perspectives of the villains. But back to what you were saying about the first Avengers, it was actually funny. Last night when I saw it for the second time, I saw it with some buddies who I'd grown up playing soccer with my whole life. And we had actually seen the first Avengers movie when we were like 9 at some soccer tournament, far off or doing something, but just like team bonding. But we saw the first Avengers movie together, and now we're 20 years old in college, and Marvel is still giving us these great movies. So that was just a cool moment of kind of realizing, oh my gosh, like this has been a part of my life for like a long time now.
Oh yeah,
it's really cool.
Yeah, Soren, did it meet your expectations? You love Spider-Man. Did it meet your expectations?
Yeah.
Did it surpass them? You told me, is it on the chain of like Marvel movies? Where would you rank it as your
Probably number 1. It's
number
probably my
1?
favorite.
Can you talk loud on the mic there?
It's probably my favorite movie. I've
Favorite
ever
Marvel
seen.
movie out of all of them?
Marvel.
He was actually right out of the theaters like, that's the best Marvel movie ever made. And
that's a Spider-Man fan right there.
Spider-Man fan. And not only that, he's not the only person I've heard that from. Like, several people have told me that. Like, it's their favorite Marvel movie ever.
I think there's a lot that is going to be so one that you want to watch over and over. And sometimes the end game, and there's just there's such heaviness that I don't necessarily want to watch that one over and over. And this one has some tragic, sad moments too, but they're different. I mean, like this. I knew this probably was going to have to happen. Like with Aunt May, I guess these are spoilers. So with Aunt May going, I was sad that they did that, but that's part of that. That character arc where he's got to lose somebody like that to get that quote about with great. What is it? With great
power comes great responsibility.
Great power. Yeah, she had to get that quote out.
That was Uncle Ben's quote from the original Spider-Man, which was one. And we forget, like, that original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, the first one, was kind of the rebirth of the superhero movie. Before that, you had some crappy Batmans. The Keaton Batman was great, right? And the Christopher Reeve Supermans, the original first one, great. Then it got kind of worse after that. This was the rebirth. That's Tobey Maguire Spider-Man of this is what it could be. Nobody ever seen anything quite like it, and for them to pull full circle, how they all had shared tragedy in their life. That in the multiverse, like everybody, it was pretty remarkable and a great testament because spoiler, Aunt May, he loses Aunt May in this Marissa Tomei's character, who, by the way, I should comment, Marissa Tomei is a fantastic actress, and her performance in this was incredible and might even be like worthy of like supporting actress kind of stuff. Like, I think she is incredible. Not just, I think she's an incredible actress anyway, but especially in her role in the last few kind of Marvel Spider-Man things has been great, and I'm sad to see her go. But the way she went out was in what she was teaching and how she would never gave up on these terrible bad guys, right? Even them. There's hope for everybody. It's just so uplifting and enlightening. I thought her character was incredible, and that was a powerful moment.
I was concerned that they were going to take out Toby. And so I'm so grateful. I wonder if there were two different versions. I wonder if they thought about, should we... But I was so glad that they didn't do that.
Yeah, and back to Aunt May, I mean, I thought she did a great job. The acting was amazing. I loved how they gave her a bigger role in this movie because I felt like she's had a good role in the past Spider-Mans, but... this really showed how this is Tom Holland's like mother's character. It's like this has been his molding on everything he is because of her. And I thought this movie, even though the time was limited, it did a great job at showing her impact. And a little bit about that is like I was surprised. I mean, I don't know why, but I was surprised that she was the one who died. I thought a little bit because Tony Stark died. I mean, I know, of course, Spider-Man, he's got to have a death, and I thought Tony Stark was that big death for him.
Right.
So he kind of gets it twice, which is kind of sad. But I was same as you. I actually thought it was going to be Andrew Garfield. I thought they were going to play him as, his MJ died. This is his chance to kind of make up for it, and he sacrifices himself. But I heard a lot of different the different Spider-Man theory of who was going to die. But I liked it.
I think Aunt May dying linked him to the other, because we've never seen his Uncle Ben, right?
No.
So, I mean, it gave him that bond with the other two Spider-Men that they lost a parent, even though he had lost Tony Stark. It's kind of made their universes a little more parallel.
Sure.
That they had lost an aunt or uncle.
Well, they play that up too. In that scene where he's explaining, you guys don't know what I've been through, and they all stop for a minute and let him vent, right? But we all know they have, right? He just Tom Holland's character, Spider-Man, Spider-Man 1. I don't know, they numbered each other, right? He didn't know that yet, but all the crowd knows it. They know it. And the wisdom of those guys are there on the screen. And Tom Holland's Spider-Man is still such a young kid, right? And he's still new to all this. And in some ways he's more seasoned. I mean, like you said, he's fought aliens. He saved the world. With he was in a rock group called the Avengers, right? And that was. I think that was some great character development too. Is that a great lesson, and them kind of quietly letting him experience that pain and have his space for a moment, right? Before they just immediately jump in and say, "Hey, I know what you're feeling. I know what you're going through," kind of deal.
Yeah. And the next big, of course, role in this movie, who we haven't talked about yet, is Doctor Strange. For me, Benedict Cumberbatch is a great actor. I love him in everything he's done. The Sherlock Holmes series and a lot of great movies and shows. He definitely had a limited role than I thought he was going to have. Him and Spider-Man have that fight scene, and it was a really cool scene. And Tom Holland's got his moment of saying math is cooler than magic, which was cool. But then he didn't show up till the very end. Which was a shocker for me. I don't really have a problem with it, but it was definitely, when I looked back at my expectations for the movie, it was a shocker. I thought it would be kind of more of a duo movie, even though it was Spider-Man's movie, which, again, didn't have a problem with it, just something that surprised me. What do you guys think?
He seemed to be there more to open the multiverse they had to figure out how to get these other two guys there. So, it seemed more like a plot device than... But it was good. I thought it was effective. Like it is where you were misled a little bit, because you think the movie's going to be about him, but it's about these other guys coming into the movie, which was a bigger moment.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that his that would be my one kind of like my initial takeaway, that if I had a negative thought other than the crowd, right? It was, this movie didn't have to happen, right? It wasn't like a sequence of events that they couldn't control. They caused all this, right? And it was written, and it was for the fans. So there was a sense in me like, why did we just sit here and watch? Why did all this have to happen? But then again, we got to see Toby and all this cool stuff. So I'm totally okay with that as a fan. But now they've set into chain events into motion of, there's probably some things that will be coming as a result of this. I think one of the key points of Doctor Strange going forward is at the end he makes some comments about he's learning some things about. He said frighteningly little about the multiverse. Well, I think he knows firsthand a little bit more now, and is kind of a foremost authority on it and becoming more. And at the end, he finds out, other people are opening portals and kind of what all this is. And then in the trailer, it lends to he's exploring this even more, that what does this mean and how does this work? So I think if nothing else, it sets up the next part of everything, right? So
right, I'm still trying to learn more about him, and in Endgame, he seemed to know the outcome. He knew the only way it was going to resolve. So I'm always like, does he always know everything? Is he just?
Well, he had the time stone then.
Okay.
The time stone had a huge role.
Okay.
A huge role.
Because I kept even thinking in this one, like, well, doesn't he know what's gonna? Even if Tom Holland messes it up, doesn't he know the outcome? So that was it.
Also, they deal in a lot of probabilities too. That the outcomes are not certain necessarily. It's the foreknowledge versus predetermined kind of questions, and that's really interesting too to see how that plays out. But I love the Doctor Strange character. Did we know that he had blipped and he had been gone for 5 years? Is that new information, or did we know that?
We knew that because in Endgame, he blips away and he tells Tony that there's only one way.
That's right.
And then he blips.
Okay, so he was gone for 5 years, which is why he's not in charge anymore. They make that point, and
which is very interesting.
Yeah, and then you have
something I never think about either.
The Shang-Chi tie-ins too. Yeah, so that's really fascinating too. So I think we're learning about, even though Doctor Strange was less of a primary character in this movie, I think this does set up these things happened. That was the other thing too. It felt a little reckless, right? When he's casting that spell and they keep changing it. You know what I'm saying? Like, wait a second. I know we get comic effect, but you should know better, man.
Yeah. And then to go off that, exactly. That's the thing. So again, one of the other big, some people were predicting that Doctor Strange wasn't Doctor Strange. Maybe he was Mephisto. And honestly, I was with all my big Marvel buddies when we first saw it, and we were looking at each other and it was like, there's a good chance, like, we did not think it was going to happen. But like, Doctor Strange has been so careful in all of his other movies, and he seems so protective of this timeline and the multiverse and things like that. And then he kind of just he gets this crazy compassion for Spider-Man and Tom Holland,
so they can get into MIT.
And again, so that was probably my biggest critique was, I was like, I felt like there needed to be more. They maybe needed to develop Doctor Strange's and Spider-Man's relationship, because if it was like a Tony Stark Spider-Man relationship, that would make a little more sense. But I'm like, you guys have I've only seen you guys in a couple of scenes, and it's just been more comical than sentimental. So it doesn't really make sense to me why Doctor Strange would be like, yeah, I'll risk everybody basically in the universe or in this planet for you basically. It was a little hard to believe, but again, I was a fan, so I wasn't really going to question.
Well, that brings us to the last cutscene where you get the trailer basically for the new Doctor Strange. My kids are all in here messing with us right now, so we're trying to stay focused. The new Doctor Strange movie, which is basically the cutscene's a trailer, right? And you see, and the first thing Soren said, you brought up, I had not seen this, but what did you say to me about the Doctor Strange trailer when you saw the different Doctor Strange kind of thing?
Well, the different Doctor Strange, there's something like that in What If, where he turns evil and tries to break an absolute point.
So exactly, I think it's episode 4 is when they introduce this Doctor Strange gets his own episode of What If. So that's a great point, and for our listeners who haven't seen What If, definitely need to see the whole thing, and especially episode 4, and they'll understand Doctor Strange's trailer a lot more.
Yeah, that was I haven't seen it, so he was explaining that to me, and I thought that might be like you said, like this conversation we're having right now about his role in this movie, maybe that trailer points to some of the reasons why, like you said, maybe there's some things your friends pointed out that this seems a little off and out of character for him, right? So we'll see.
Yeah.
But what?
But at the end of that episode, he realizes what he's done wrong, and I guess he couldn't really be bad.
Oh, so I don't know.
Unless it's during that episode.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, I agree. It will be interesting to see how they do this with the next movie, because if they, like what you're saying, is if they basically say what if is this, then they have to figure out how to put it perfectly in that timeline. So that will be interesting.
Fascinating. So the other cut scene, we find Tom Hardy. All right, talk to us a little bit about that. There's a lot of cheers for that too. It surprised me how much he got cheered also.
Yeah, and that was great. It seemed like it paired, I mean, almost exactly with the cut scene, the end scene of Venom 2, which it basically kind of just introduces Venom to this multiverse and the Marvel universe, with where Spider-Man is and what our Tom Holland's Spider-Man, which again is surprising as a Marvel fan because Venom has been its own separate Sony project, and now they're saying he's going to be in it. How it goes is, again, I'm not even 100% sure how it. So it's Tom Hardy, Venom. He's at a bar. He's talking to this guy, kind of getting a summary of what.
It's important. That guy. Do you know who that guy is that he's talking to?
No.
So this has got me. That's Danny Rojas from Ted Lasso. I don't know the actor's real name, but like Ted Lasso is a huge show right now, and he's a key character. Like maybe he's just cameo, maybe it's just he's an extra, just a very insignificant role because he wants to be in a Marvel movie. But my first thing is I elbowed all my. That's Danny Rojas. Danny Rojas. Football is life. And and so I don't know if he's gonna. I hope he's in all of it next coming up. But sorry, that character is. Yeah. Wanted to point that out for the Ted Lasso awesome. People.
I didn't know. That's cool. Maybe he will have a bigger part. But yeah, so basically Tom Hardy is just kind of getting the summary from this bartender, and then what would you guys describe it as? He blimps out, but it's like a yellow gold fades out. So I'm not sure what that could be.
Do you think you have something?
But then do you guys know what it's called when the Venom part of him is left on the table?
The little goo.
It's like an embryo. I don't know. It's something. Yeah, the goo. The goo is left on the table.
Were you going to say something? Did you have something when he blipped away?
Well, that was when they sent everybody back to their universe. He was in Tobey Maguire's movie.
So that's the thing.
That
is Sinister Six, right? Is Venom one of the Sinister Six?
I don't. Yeah.
Ooh,
you're the expert on. What's that?
I'm not the. I mean,
so you had. I actually thought, knowing the Sinister Six, it would make sense that there'd be 6 villains, but there were only 5. So in that cutscene, there's true. Venom, and it's like he's just chilling, right? He's been there the whole time too, but instead of finding Spider-Man, he's just at the bar drinking, right? And so when they push the button and send them all back, he goes back too. But the blob stays there. It's kind of what that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, they send him back. That's true.
Dad,
huh?
You know why?
You know why? Tell us.
Well, I think is it because when
lean forward,
he was Venom, and he dropped a goop, but it only took Eddie back to the universe instead of Venom.
What do you think? What?
That's so.
Okay, so
hold on. This is Wyatt. Wyatt is listening to this too, and he wants to jump in. Tell him.
What's up, Wyatt?
What I think is, whenever all the stuff from the different dimensions or whatever they slept through, I think that Venom from let's say Tobey Maguire's dimension, I think it traveled through and ended up at that bar, and there's gonna be 2 Venoms or something like that.
Oh,
a space-time continuum, because part of he didn't all go back completely, because that little goo showed that he's still in this timeline, which probably creates some sort of space-time continuum issue. Maybe Doc Brown's in the next one from Back to the Future. I don't know.
Well, the thing is, I mean, how Spider-Man ends, it definitely looks like he's getting his own apartment. We don't know if Zendaya and all of his friends and Happy, if they're ever going to remember him again. So it looks like whatever the future of Spider-Man looks like, it's going to be more of that kind of classic, just neighborhood New York for the time being, at least for this next one. So, I mean, again, Venom would fit perfectly with that if they want to figure out how to get him or a different actor to pair up with Venom. I personally love Tom Hardy, and I would be sad if anybody else was Venom except him. But it looks like it's just going to be kind of like that classic. He's got the classic suit, and he's got the police scanner. I mean, that's a very classic Spider-Man look.
Mm-hmm. And he also says
he's definitely lost his toys from Stark.
Yeah,
from Happy.
And he even uses the phrase "your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man." It's the first time he's used that phrase that I remember. Tom Holland's never said that, right?
Right.
Were you gonna? Did you have something? Did you say? No. He was just discussing with Wyatt some theories, but, he's going to save that.
All right.
But, man, yeah, I thought it was great. I really did. There's so much you could talk about here, from Zendaya and MJ and Ned is their character names. And just kind of
Ned getting his portal power.
Which kind of opens up the door to, him being more involved with, I know there's a moment where Doctor Strange, wait, you opened a portal? It's kind of like surprised by that. And you can see him taking note, like we might need this kid at some point in the future.
Yeah.
So it makes you think that just not anybody can do that. Like that takes a special skill. It's not just that he had that ring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it definitely looks like. I mean, when me and my buddies were nudging each other during the movie, right when Ned said, "Oh, magic is in my family," we were like, "Okay, something's going to happen with Ned." You don't just say Marvel doesn't just say like those kind of big statements and doesn't do anything with that. Like they're going to give him something.
That was a lot of foreshadowing. Yeah, you don't waste words.
Disney loves and Marvel loves when they see people love a character. They love to give them more, screen time. And people love Ned, so I definitely think it would be reasonable to say we're going to see him some more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I completely agree. Yeah. So, what's the next Marvel movie that's coming out?
So the thing is, now that Venom has happened, and Sony has kind of free range to be part of the Marvel universe, it raises a lot of questions. We've got the new Morbius movie, which I don't know if you guys seen the trailer for.
Yep.
It's Jared Leto.
Yep.
That comes out in January, I believe. And then after that, we're going to be followed by Doctor Strange 2, which I believe will be March, if I'm not mistaken. But Morbius will be definitely interesting to see if they try and do anything with that.
Do you think Daredevil gets involved more?
I mean, I need to watch that. I need to go through that and watch that.
I will warn you and our viewers, it's not like kid friendly at all. It's a Netflix series. It was kind of that Netflix era where everything's darker and more for adults, right? It's not. It's violent, like extremely violent. But I think I've said before on this podcast, it's one of my favorite series. Like I was telling David this weekend. The era, not watching Hawkeye, and kind of if you're caught up on Hawkeye, the bad guy that's kind of emerging is a very famous villain in the Marvel universe that we have yet to see in the MCU, right? We've seen him in Into the Spider-Verse. We've seen him. He's just emerging here. And when I was a kind of a young teenager, I got into comic books, and my entry into comic books was Daredevil, the Punisher. And where I got into Spider-Man, it's where it overlapped into those, because Kingpin is a villain in with Spider-Man and Punisher and Daredevil, and we're starting to see kind of that merge and the entrance of Murdoch as his lawyer, and then even I think this is the second time he's had screen. Is that correct? This isn't the first time we've seen him. Is it the first time we've seen him in a movie?
This is I'm pretty sure this is the first time we've seen him. I feel like
he was in maybe it was in WandaVision or Loki where he made an appearance. I can't remember. Am I wrong about that? I'm gonna have to Google that. But maybe I dreamed it, because I love his character. Like Ben Affleck played Daredevil in a terrible movie. But his resurrection of that character in this Netflix series, is fantastic. Like, it's fantastic. Okay. It explores. It's just really deep and explores like just deep-seated human traits of redemption and grace that honestly we haven't even talked about that. How about the idea that this movie was about the restoration of these bad guys and giving them a chance to live when they didn't deserve it? Yeah. I mean, just the overall positivity of that, and that he was convinced Doctor Strange and really took a risk to save these guys that didn't deserve saving, and his Aunt May was the kind of the thrust of all that. I mean, we haven't talked about those themes as very much, but Jamie Foxx and especially William Dafoe, who convinces them in their naivety that this guy can change, and then he doesn't and almost wrecks the whole thing. There's a lot of parallels and a lot of lessons to be learned from that I thought were deep and heavy, and on the first watch you just sort of maybe just kind of go right over you, but the whole point of all of this, that movie, they make this mistake and all these people come, but then they have compassion on these characters, and their whole point in not just sending them back was to give them a chance, to live and to change. And that, have we ever seen that in a superhero movie? The bad guy's always the bad guy, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that too. I definitely, the second time I watched it, I realized, like, I exactly noticed that. Like, the second time I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is all, like, these villains are all the most hated people from these past movies, and they're basically saying, no, their circumstances just kind of made them into that. And it was just it's a cool redemption story for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Aunt May too. Like, I think that much makes her sacrifice, and the one that bit the dust, even more so. The one that always had hope, the one that always was like, no, we have to do the right thing, is the one that dies, and ultimately it's her sacrifice that eats Tom Holland, Spider-Man 1's up with the emotion of, no, I'm going to get revenge and kill those guys, and then he has the voice of the other two saying, this isn't going to solve anything, and ultimately, ultimately he was going to kill, Green Goblin. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was over. And Tobey Maguire had to step in, really sacrifices himself to save Green Goblin, which is his enemy, right? Who he had already killed in another timeline. And, he talked about how his friend died in his arms, right? His son, Harry, and all of those things kind of come all together. And I think the rewatchability on this movie is very, very high, because I think you'll be pulling stuff out of this for a long time. And I think that's part of the genius.
As we've talked about it, I want to go see it again so bad, because there's so much to go back and absorb.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, so good, so many good fight scenes. I mean, you watch that. I mean, watching it the second time, watching the end scene where all three Spider-Mans are like, we've never been on a team before. Yep. And Tom Holland has, but they're like, all right, we're gonna do this, and that scene is just literally perfect.
Yep.
And it was so cool, and it gets better and better watching it again, and just being able to really tune in for it. It was so fun.
And how about the scene where MJ goes off the side?
Yeah, and I was about to get to that. The thing that I loved about this movie the most, honestly, for me, there's this big topic of who's the best Spider-Man. You've got the three generations. Who's the best? Like, you've got the classic, you've got the new and modern, and then you've got Andrew Garfield, who's kind of in the middle. And he kind of gets this bad rap about being the worst Spider-Man. At least that's what kind of gets thrown around in my circle of conversation. And, of course, I mean, I thought he was great. He was actually my favorite part of this movie. He made me laugh more than anybody else. His scenes were so cool, and that Zendaya scene was just awesome.
Yeah.
So I mean, I loved Andrew Garfield.
I thought he did a great job.
Yeah.
He had a lot of emotions to show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. It was just all around just incredible, and we could just talk about any other favorite scenes that we've left out. That to me was like a key thing, and we almost didn't even. There's so many things to talk about. We almost glossed over that. Is there any other favorite scenes that you really enjoyed that were powerful to you?
I did.
What do you got?
When Ned was just opening those portals trying to find Pete, Spider-Man #1, and kept opening it. I couldn't hear anything, but it was pretty good.
That whole dialogue, we missed it because of just the loudness of the crowd. But, they were trying to help their friend out, right? And then all of a sudden, whoa, they did help their friend out, but they didn't know they were, right? It's pretty remarkable.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that was such a cool scene. Watching it the second time, something for you guys to all look for. Ned's mom. It was really interesting. I was watching a little closer. When Tobey Maguire comes in, they almost have this moment of recognizing each other. And she said, he waves at her, and she puts her hand down, well, hello, and kind of puts his hand down. And then also, there's a scene when they're in the house. Ned's family has this wall of knives on their mantle, and I'm like, why would this nice lady have these daggers on her mantle? So I definitely think, again, we talked about Ned having magic and having more of a story. I think we're a high chance and high probability of seeing Ned's mom again.
Well, there you go.
So at the end, the powerful scene where he walks back in and they don't know who he is, right? Did that play out like you thought it would? I know he had promised her that he would go tell her, right? So you're all expecting him just to spill the beans, and he doesn't.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that's just one of those things about, cinema that as a viewer, you want to, run through the screen and be like, talk to her right now and explain it all. But it's like, that would be too easy, that would be too easy. There's got to be some conflict. You can't have everything you want. That's definitely the biggest question of Zendaya and Ned, but also Happy. You look at that end scene in the graveyard with Happy, and you're like, well, Happy's only connection to the MCU was Tony Stark and Tom Holland. So if he doesn't have any of those, are we going to see Happy again?
Well, he knew Spider-Man. He knew Spider-Man and knew May. So my thought was, why don't you just say, hey, dude, I'm Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Who did he think Spider-Man was? I thought that was that was the one that was the biggest head scratcher for me. You would think he could handle the truth of all of them, right? Yeah. Given his history with the Avengers and Tony Stark, that if you were going to just say, hey, dude, this is what happened. I met Doctor Strange and all this stuff happened and they erased everybody's memory, but I'm actually Spider-Man. You would think Happy would be the one that would be like, oh, okay, wait, hit me with that again, And he didn't. That too, but maybe it was just kind of you're back in the moment, and you're like, let's give this time to breathe.
Yeah. I think there must be more there than we really realize, because also with that, a head scratcher is if people just forgot he was Spider-Man, wouldn't Zendaya and Ned still know him as a classmate? Ned's known him for a long time. If they don't know he's Spider-Man, that's okay, but they would still know who Peter Parker is, right?
But that's what they forgot who Peter Parker was.
That was
Everybody
the spell.
Forgot Peter
So it was everyone forget who Peter Parker was, not who just Spider-Man.
Yeah, they didn't. They just forgot Peter Parker existed.
Yeah.
So that was because I kept going, well, how does Aunt May know Spider-Man if she no longer knows Peter Parker? How would their paths have crossed? That was I was like, I don't.
Yeah.
That my mind couldn't grip that.
That's interesting.
I just had to let it go.
A couple other quick things I noticed, just a little throw this out there. So at the very beginning of the first 10, 20 minutes of the movie, did you notice the dress, what Tom Holland was wearing, his shoes in particular, homage to Miles Morales. They were the Nike, not the exact shoes, but the same color scheme, and the Jordans. They made a point to show those shoes, and I do think that was a nod to the Spider-Verse. The other thing is when Jamie Foxx says, surely there's a black Spider-Man somewhere, right? And I actually was hoping that I've heard, are they making a live-action Spider-Verse? And I know they're making a sequel to that cartoon, but I thought that would have been a perfect opportunity to have the Miles Morales character show up, but also you don't want to get in the way of the three of them, and there's a lot of time to split up there. But Miles Morales is still my favorite Spider-Man. He still is. Into the Spider-Verse, and this is not in any way disparaging this movie. This movie is incredible, but it's still it's top 5. My favorite superhero movies are still Endgame, Infinity War, Black Panther, Into the Spider-Verse, and then probably this one. Because this is borrowed. That's awesome. Basically, the plot line of this is Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Just the live action version of it.
We saw Kingpin, right? Was in Spider-Verse.
Yep.
So that's another little intro in a way that they're going to do that. The possibilities are endless. When we were talking about that, the good thing about Marvel, another good thing is they're really good about kind of explaining things. So if we don't do it now, there's not a lot of things that multiple movies go and you don't really understand. Like you saw with Eternals, it wasn't a great movie, but I didn't really feel super confused about the whole logistics of everything,
right?
Which is a good thing.
Were you going to say something?
All right.
You going to jump in? You good?
Can I say 2 quick things?
You can say 2 quick things. Come on. Let's do it quick. Do it quick. Get close to the mic.
Mysterio. I think what everybody forgets is that at the beginning he still posted the video of who Peter Parker is. So I feel like everybody's forgetting that he's still alive, and they're probably setting something up. And the other thing that I wanted to say was that on Rotten Tomatoes, actually, Black Panther is still the #1 rated, and No Way Home is #2, actually.
As of right now,
Oh, wow.
you didn't check
As
that
of
out.
right now.
How about that? We got some up-to-date
How about
stats on that too,
I love it.
and
That's great.
there's all, and that's the thing too. Like we talk as we wrap up here, why we love Disney. There are all sorts of things we bring into these movies, all sorts of emotions, backgrounds. Did you read the comic books as a kid? Did you not? Some of us did, some of us didn't.
Right.
Some of us we came of age with Tobey Maguire. I had a friend that was telling me, well, Tobey's my all-time favorite Spider-Man. I don't like the new stuff. And then he went and saw this movie and says, best movie I've ever seen. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just sort of paid respect to all of it. And you have Batman fans, you have Christian Bale Batman guys, you have nobody's better than Michael Keaton, right? And then we all agree Val Kilmer sucked, but George Clooney, maybe he was okay. And then Robert Pattinson, we can't wait to see him. I think Ben Affleck's underrated as Batman. But this is what we can do, and what Marvel has done so well is allow all of us to all the fans to come together and to give us what we want, to give the fans what they want, didn't force anything down, and made a great movie on top of it. A great movie. Right. And man, I just can't think of the last time they swung and missed. Yeah, you're dying to say something. Go for it.
Another thing, I have 2 more things. What about Flash's book, Flashpoint, about him and Peter being like best friends?
What? What are you talking about?
You mean
Yeah.
what would happen? Like it's still a thing.
What's the thing? I'm confused.
Flash made a book after Peter
Flash who?
got famous.
Oh, Flash. That's right. What happened to his book? I'm thinking Flash
I guess
Gordon,
it
Flash for like the DC
I guess it
character.
just vanished. I guess all the content probably just vanished. I don't know what happened with it. That's true. That is something to think about. Is like, did all that content just vanish from? Did it just go from people's mind, or did it go from literally every source? That's interesting. Yeah.
And I have another thing.
Yeah, go for it.
When Doctor Strange is trying to hold in the cracks, you see Rhino in one of the cracks, but what other villains could you have in there?
That's a good point.
If there were different villains in there, what villains would be brought in?
I don't know. John David is the expert on Spider-Man villains.
Craven?
Well, I just love Marvel. I'm not an expert on any of the characters, but I mean, a lot of bad guys probably. Just a little assumption is just every bad guy. I mean, they have that little moment of who the worst bad guys or weirdest bad guys you faced. It would have been all of them.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. I thank you guys for your time. I think I can't wait to watch it again and see how it grows and see where it goes from here. And I'm excited about a Hawkeye episode coming up this Wednesday, because I think that there's going to be more overlap in all of these things. And I wouldn't be surprised to see some sort of reference, in the new Hawkeye timed up perfectly with, you don't think that, but I just expect anything now. Like, I don't know how they could do it, but they somehow pull off new surprises all the time. And man, that's why we love Disney. They can tell a story, and they can draw us in, and they can make people inspire us to make a podcast to talk about why we love it. And if you're, and do you guys have anything in closing you guys want to say?
Well, I also think we need to give a little nod to Sony for this one as well, because there was a lot of their influence in this movie.
Well, who exactly? Who was? And that's an interesting conversation too. We don't have to do that right now. But who was the responsible part? They both had to agree. Like, somebody had to give something up for this to happen. Who gave up the most?
I don't know how. I can't figure out how it works,
Well,
but
I feel like Kevin Feige is just in the driver's seat for everything. I mean, he's part of the one who allowed Daredevil. I mean, everything goes through him. So I feel like, he definitely partners with Sony, but everyone kind of trusts whatever Kevin says is probably the way to go. So as far as every part of the movie, I'm not sure, but I know Kevin, he's got his hand on everything.
Who's the producer? Is it Pascal? The woman who's the producer? I think she has a big... On the Sony side, I think she has a strong influence.
Well, I think they also...
And Pascal?
I think so. I think they've kept these... The reason we haven't heard much about these contracts between these two studios, and we probably will now that it's out, was it would reveal too much. It was so secret to keep all this under wraps. But I'm really fascinated, and maybe the next podcast we'll know more. Over the next month, we'll probably start to hear stories about how this cooperation between two studios took place, and who made the money, and who convinced who to do what, and what this means for the future with contracts between two rival studios who came together to do something creatively awesome. And you don't always have that. And I think we're all, as fans, just hope that's the future, right? I want to see more of it. If Universal's listening, if you would do us all a favor and just shut down that Marvel world and Universal Studios and let Disney have it. You got Harry Potter, you got more coming. We don't just give it to them. It's over. All right. We want to. We want that Avengers campus in Orlando also, as well as Los Angeles.
That's right.
Or Anaheim. Yeah. But guys, thanks for your time, and I'm pumped about this. I can't wait to see it again. And if anybody else has anything to say they'd like to add here, if not, we'll start our goodbyes.
Hey, Soren, thanks for joining us, and you too,
Soren.
Wyatt. Thanks for sharing.
Wyatt's already ran down. He can't. Wyatt actually was talking without any way. He couldn't hear you guys at all. He could only hear one side of the conversation. But but they've all been they're big listeners to the podcast, and they're all super excited to talk about Spider-Man and some other things Disney too. So actually, and you can say hi to Judah and Cohen over here too. Yeah.
Hey guys,
they're all. We got an audience for this one. So. But anyhow, and it's holidays too. It's the holidays. Merry Christmas. I think it's almost the 1 year anniversary of the Why I Love Disney podcast creation. Actually, that's not true.
That's not true. All of 20 and 21.
2 years.
2 years.
2 year anniversary. Wow. Dadgum, man. You're right. It feels like COVID's like a time portal has opened up, and it's but we're almost a 2 year anniversary.
We had a blip.
A blip, exactly.
We had a blip.
But, man, thank you guys for your time again, and thank you, listeners, for sticking with us and checking this out. And we would love to hear from you. Check us out on whyilovedisney.com. We also have an Instagram. We also have a Twitter account. Interact with us. Let us know what you loved about the Spider-Man movie or what you didn't like. We'd like to hear that, too, and we just love to interact with you. Also, if you could, share an episode. Share an episode with somebody and leave us a review, 5-star review preferably. But, man, we cannot wait to come back. Probably right after Christmas with a new episode talking about the 10th time we've seen Spider-Man and other things happening too. But until then, have a great holiday. Have a Merry Christmas. Guys, thanks for your time, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.